All right, welcome back. And in today's video, we're going to talk about something called SAT CHIT ANANDA. This is a core teaching in Hindu philosophy, specifically Advaita Vedānta. It describes the self, the essential nature of the self, also Ātman or Brahman or the divine spark. There's many names for it. It is not three separate qualities, but three ways of pointing to one indivisible reality, SAT CHIT ANANDA. Sat is being or existence. It means that which truly is absolute, unchanging existence. It is not existence in the ordinary sense as objects that appear and disappear. It is existence itself, independent of time, form, or condition. The self is Sat because it is never born and will never die. And that is another name for the self. That is you. Everything that comes and goes is not you. Only the self, which does not come and go, is eternal, unchanging. That is you. That is the self. Chit means consciousness or awareness. Chit refers to pure consciousness, the awareness by which all experiences are known. It is not thinking, it is not perception, it is not mental activity, but the silent, luminous knowing behind those. The self is Chit because it is self-aware and self-revealing, needing nothing else to know it. The mind is not Chit. Thinking is not Chit. Emotions are not Chit. Anything you can perceive through the senses is not Chit. Anything you can perceive through the senses is not the self. Ānanda, the third teaching of Sat Chit Ananda, means bliss or fulfillment. Bliss also could mean love. Ananda is not pleasure or emotional happiness. It's deep, causeless fullness. It arises naturally when there's no sense of lack, no sense of separation, and no sense of becoming. The self is Ananda because complete and whole, it is free from desire and suffering. You are Sat Chit Ananda. The self is Sat Chit Ananda. And then when you put them together, the self, Sat is ever existing, Chit is ever aware, Ananda is ever blissful, ever fulfilled. Bliss is not something the self experiences, it is what the self is. Bliss, love. When ignorance and ego dissolve, this inherent bliss, fullness, love shines absolute. The self is existence itself, aware of itself, and complete in itself. And then we could go over a few Upanishad texts that talk about what I found interesting was bliss as the self. And so there's a lot of texts that talk about this because this brought up a really fascinating intersection between science and the Upanishad ancient texts. Bliss happens during a state of gamma brainwaves, and bliss and gamma brainwaves refer to the self, and those shown in early 2000 studies, the early 2000s showed these monks producing high levels of gamma brainwaves produced from high levels of compassion. Compassion's highly important. One of the most important qualities of self-realization is compassion, compassion, compassion. Compassion is key. Loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, equanimity, the four Brahma Viharas. They must be cultivated or self-realization is not complete. As far as bliss in the Upanishad texts, there's a few I'd like to read. There's the Taittiriya Upanishad 3.6.1. He realized that bliss is Brahman, the self. It's one of the most direct statements in the Upanishads, talking about ultimate reality itself is bliss, not merely something that has bliss. It is bliss. When you look at some masters or yogis or spiritual adepts who are so immersed in that bliss, I mean, the Sufis were really big on love and cultivating the heart. But once you get so deep in that, you just become like mush at the furthest extremes of it. I mean, there's little bits in here that you feel and you're like, oh, it feels so good. But when you get to the highest levels, you're just almost like catatonic in that state of bliss. Now back to the Taittiriya Upanishad, we talked about 3.6.1, from bliss all beings are born, by bliss they live, into bliss they finally enter. Taittiriya 2.7.1, he is rasa, the very existence of light or sweetness. Here Brahman's described as a taste or flavor of all joy, which is bliss itself, or love, not an object of enjoyment. There's no fear where bliss is. This is from the Taittiriya Upanishad 2.9.1. Words return from it along with the mind, unable to reach it. One who knows the bliss of Brahman, the self, fears nothing at all. Bliss here is beyond language and thought, and it dissolves all fear. When you're in that state, there's no fear. There's just absolute feeling of love, bliss, joy, happiness. All those are just another words for the self. Taittiriya Upanishad 2.8 to 2.9, even the greatest imaginable human happiness is insignificant compared to the bliss of Brahman, which is infinite and unsurpassed. The bliss of Brahman, of the self, the bliss of the self, is infinite and unsurpassed. Infinity times infinity. That's who you are. This is the bliss of all bliss. There's nothing more comparable. You could chase alcohol, drugs, you could chase anything else in this world, but you'll never find the bliss of all bliss. Only that can be found here, and that is you. So go become bliss, become the self, realize the self. Now we go back to the Brahmanyaka Upanishad 4.3.32. That's a tough one to pronounce. This indeed is bliss. That passage identifies the deepest self, or Ātman, with bliss, not pleasure, but unconditional fullness. We go to Chandogya Upanishad 7.23.1, where one sees nothing else, hears nothing else, knows nothing else. That is the infinite. And that, immediately after that, it says, that which is infinite, that is bliss. That is you. And so, to summarize, bliss here is not an emotion, it's not dependent on objects, it's the nature of reality and the self. All pleasures are reflections of this one infinite bliss. Rather than chase reflections of the bliss, go to the heart, to the root, go to bliss itself, and abide as that. Realize the self. That's all there is to do. And we talked about one who knows the bliss never of the self, or Brahman, never fears anything. 100 times human happiness equals one happiness of the human Gandharvaras. This is where they start to explain the equivalent of bliss that is felt in the self. And then it goes on further. It says 100 times that equals the happiness of the divine Gandharvaras. 100 times that equals the happiness of the gods of by birth. 100 times that equals the happiness of gods who attain divinity through action. 100 times that equals the happiness of Indra. 100 times that equals the happiness of Brahaspati. 100 times that equals the happiness of Prajapati. 100 times the happiness of Prajapati equals the bliss of Brahman. So you're talking about 100 times this, 100 times that, 100 times this, 100 times that. And so the bliss of the knower of the self was learned in the Veda and free from desire. So the bliss of the knower of the self is learned in the Veda and free from desire. Yeah, those without desires know bliss. Those without desire or aversion. Bliss is Brahman. That's the key fundamental aspect here. And so, yeah, like I was saying, 100 times this, 100 times that, 100 times this. It was another way of the Upanishads to state that bliss is infinite, absolutely infinite. And never forget, you must always remember you are bliss. You are the self. You are SAT CHIT ANANDA. You are that. All right, thank you for being here, and stay tuned for another video.